What was life like in Solomon's temple? How did he manage to divide his time between 700 royal wives and 300 concubines? Every day, women were prepared for a possible night with the king. Baths in perfumed waters, massages with myrrh and aloe oils, and hair braided with gold threads. In the palace, nights followed elaborate rituals. Exotic perfumes, hypnotizing dances, sacred baths in rare oils, and jewelry chosen to seduce. But the competition among these women went far beyond pleasure. You'll discover how this immense harem functioned, what daily life was like in the temple, and in the end, we will reveal an even darker mystery. The supernatural being that Solomon kept under control using his legendary ring. Stay until the end because this revelation could change everything you've ever heard about the most powerful king in history. Imagine yourself transported to the year 957 BC. The rising sun of Jerusalem reveals a vision that left any visitor breathless. A colossal structure rising above Mount Moriah, its walls covered in pure gold reflecting the dawn light like a divine beacon. The Temple of Solomon was not just a building. It was a declaration of power and devotion that consumed resources equivalent to billions of dollars in today's values. Over 180,000 men worked tirelessly for 7 years to erect this marvel. Imagine the scene. Endless caravans of cedars from Lebanon, considered the most noble wood of the time, descending the mountains towards Jerusalem. Phoenician artisans, the most skilled in the ancient world, carved each detail with superhuman precision. The sound of hammers and chisels echoed day and night as stone blocks as large as modern houses were moved with an ingenuity that still intrigues specialists today. The dimensions of the temple defied imagination. 30 meters in length, 10 meters in width, and 15 meters in height, just in the main sanctuary. But what truly distinguished this construction was its interior. The walls were completely covered in gold, from floor to ceiling. There wasn't a single point where the eyes could rest without finding the shine of the precious metal. Giant cherubim carved from olive wood and covered in gold guarded the Holy of Holies with their extended wings, creating an atmosphere of mystery and reverence. The priest's courtyard was paved with rare stones, each telling a different story from distant places. 2 monumental columns called Jachin and Boaz marked the temple entrance, their capitals decorated with bronze pomegranates and intertwined chains symbolizing the stability and strength of Solomon's kingdom. At the heart of the temple, the Holy of Holies, a perfect 10-meter cube, housed the Ark of the Covenant. This space was so sacred that only the high priest could enter, and only once a year on the Day of Atonement. The smell of incense constantly filled the air, mingling with the aroma of cedar, creating a unique sensory experience that forever marked the memory of those who entered there. To keep this impressive structure functioning, Solomon established a revolutionary administrative system. 24 divisions of priests took turns ensuring that the sacred service never ceased. Each division had its own responsibilities, from maintaining the golden lamps to preparing the showbread, which was replaced every Sabbath. And this is just the beginning. You will discover how Solomon used supernatural powers to control demons, the secret rituals of his 1,000 wives on palace nights, and the occult practices that took place far from the eyes of the people. If you believe that God still performs great works in your life, comment now, "The temple of God is in me." At dawn, long before the sun touched the temple's golden walls, a symphony of sound began to echo through the sacred corridors. The noise of the bronze gates being opened marked the start of another day of intense activities. The Levites, divided into specific groups, began their tasks with almost military precision. The first order of the day was cleaning, a ritual as sacred as the offerings themselves. Imagine hundreds of servants moving in perfect synchronization, some carrying water in golden jars, others sweeping the courtyards with brooms specially dedicated to this purpose. The marble floor was washed with such care that it was said one could see their own reflection in it. The temple musicians, known for their exceptional skill, occupied specific positions in the courtyards. Their harps, cymbals, and trumpets created a celestial atmosphere that could be heard even outside the walls of Jerusalem. Each piece of music was carefully chosen for different times of the day, following the instructions left by King David himself. In the outer courtyards, authorized merchants sold animals for sacrifice, but it was not an ordinary market. Each animal had to pass a rigorous inspection by the priest to ensure it was perfect and worthy of being offered to God. Prices were controlled to ensure that even the poorest could participate in the rituals. A complex system of aqueducts, considered a marvel of ancient engineering, guaranteed a constant supply of water for the temple's various needs. Water was essential not only for cleaning, but also for purification rituals. The Sea of Bronze, an immense reservoir supported by 12 bronze oxen, contained enough water to meet all daily needs. The priests followed a meticulous purification ritual before starting their duties. They dressed in specific linen garments, stored in special chambers. Each piece of clothing had symbolic significance and had to be put on in a specific order, accompanied by prayers. Behind the scenes of the temple, a true city operated continuously. Bakers prepared the showbread in special ovens, following a sacred recipe passed down from generation to generation. Perfumers mixed the sacred incense, whose formula was a secret guarded as zealously as the temple's treasures. If this message touched your heart, leave your like now as an act of faith that God may pour blessings upon your life. In this video, you will learn how he dominated supernatural beings with his magic ring and the seduction rituals that transformed the palace into a place of forbidden pleasures. The harem that changed history. What you are about to discover about the greatest of ancient history will reveal secrets that few have dared to tell. A story of power, seduction, and consequences that echo to this day. Imagine a palace so vast that it could house 1,000 women, each with her own quarters, servants, and rituals. Solomon's harem was not just a place of pleasure. It was a center of political power where the fate of entire nations was decided. Wives of royal blood and 300 concubines, each representing a strategic alliance with distant kingdoms. The pharaoh's daughter occupied the most prestigious place, residing in a palace built especially for her, decorated with hieroglyphs and furnished with the finest Egyptian pieces. Her entourage included hundreds of servants, musicians, and dancers from the Nile. Her garments were made of linen so fine that it was said to be as transparent as water. The princesses of Moab brought with them the knowledge of exotic perfumes, while the Sidonian women were famous for their skills in weaving royal purple. Each cultural group maintained its own traditions, creating a unique multicultural environment in the ancient world. The harem was organized like a miniature city with its own complex hierarchy. The royal wives lived in luxurious pavilions on the upper floors with views of perfumed gardens. The concubines occupied the lower floors, still luxurious but less grand. Each woman had her own royal seal, allowing her to conduct business and maintain correspondence with her homeland. Special scribes kept meticulous records of each wife and concubine, their origins, dowries received, gifts exchanged, and most importantly, any child born from a union. The administration of the harem required an army of staff: stewards, guards, cooks, musicians, doctors, and midwives. Life in the harem followed strict rules. Special messengers, usually respected elderly women, coordinated communication between the different sections. No wife could visit another without prior authorization, a measure to prevent intrigues and conspiracies. What follows reveals the most intimate mysteries of Solomon's palace, where each night was a unique celebration of love and beauty. The preparation rituals for a night with the king began at dawn. The chosen one was discreetly announced by a special messenger, initiating an elaborate process that lasted the entire day. First, she was taken to the House of Purifications, a building dedicated exclusively to beauty rituals. There, she bathed in 7 different pools, each perfumed with specific oils: myrrh, aloe, cassia, and cinnamon. Her personal servants, usually 7, took care of every detail. The hair was washed with aromatic oils and combed with ivory combs encrusted with precious stones. The skin was treated with a secret mixture of honey, goat's milk, and essential oils, a formula passed down among the harem's guardians for generations. The nails were painted with henna, forming elaborate designs that told love stories and ancient symbols. The garments of the night were chosen with extreme care, fabrics so fine they seemed to have been woven by spiders, dyed with rare colors extracted from shells and precious minerals. Jewelry was selected not only for its beauty, but for its symbolic significance and power of seduction. The royal chamber was prepared with equal attention to detail. Golden incense burners constantly burned special fragrance mixtures, creating an intoxicating atmosphere. Flower petals were scattered over silk sheets, and oil lamps were strategically placed to create seductive lighting. Musicians specializing in love songs positioned themselves in adjacent chambers, playing soft melodies inspired by the Song of Songs. The notes flowed like honey, creating an atmosphere of romance and mystery. The chosen one was then instructed in the arts of love by experienced elders who shared secrets passed down through generations. Every gesture, every word, every movement was carefully rehearsed to create a unique and unforgettable experience. If this message touched your heart, show your faith by commenting, "God's love is greater." Hold on, because what comes next will shock you. You will discover how Solomon used supernatural powers to control demons, the secret rituals of his 1,000 wives on palace nights, and the occult practices that took place far from the eyes of the people. In the heart of Jerusalem, the Song of Songs echoed through the palace corridors, a love poem so powerful that it became part of the sacred scriptures. In it, Solomon revealed a vision of love that blended the physical and the spiritual, where human passion was celebrated as a reflection of divine love. The women of the harem came from diverse cultures, each bringing their own seduction traditions. The Egyptians were masters of belly dancing, moving like serpents to the sound of golden sistrums. The Phoenicians knew perfumery secrets that could enchant the senses, while the Moabites were famous for their love songs that made hearts melt. The palace housed secret gardens where fountains murmured among pomegranate and vine trees. There, the women learned from each other, sharing ancestral knowledge about aromatic herbs, dance movements, and the art of seductive conversation. Each culture had its own understanding of pleasure and beauty. Special musical instruments were reserved only for love songs, delicate harps whose strings were made of silk, drums that mimicked a heartbeat, flutes that sounded like passionate sighs. Music was considered a form of magic that could open the gates of the heart. Never before in history had a court seen such competition for the love of a man. What you are about to discover about the disputes in Solomon's harem reveals a power game that shaped the destiny of a kingdom. In the immense harem, each woman developed her own strategies to capture the king's attention. Some stood out for their intelligence, actively participating in discussions about governance and philosophy. Others cultivated unique artistic talents, composing poetry, creating exclusive perfumes, or developing hypnotic dances. The competition was subtle but intense. Alliances formed among women from different backgrounds, creating networks of influence that extended far beyond the palace walls. A shrewd concubine could elevate her status by forming strategic connections with influential royal wives. The servants were key pieces in this royal chess game. They carried secret messages, observed movements in the corridors, and reported every little event to their mistresses. A whisper at the right moment could change the fate of a favorite. Gifts were constantly exchanged, each carrying hidden meanings: a specially prepared cup of wine, a poem written on perfumed papyrus, a jewel with mysterious symbols. Everything was part of a secret language of power and seduction. The shrewdest understood that true power came from knowledge. They studied the king's preferences, his concerns for the kingdom, his moods and schedules. Some became informal advisors, influencing political decisions through intimate conversations. To receive victory and change your life today, comment now, "Amen, I deserve the victory, Jesus." What you are about to discover about Solomon's children will reveal how the greatest kingdom of Israel began its decline, a story of love, power, and consequences that changed the course of history. Surprisingly, despite his 1,000 women, the biblical records mention only one son of Solomon, Rehoboam. But historians believe that dozens of other princes and princesses were born in the royal harem. Each birth was a political event, strengthening alliances with foreign kingdoms and creating new lines of succession. Within the palace, each royal child had their own world. Tutors from distant lands taught languages, philosophy, and art. The mothers competed to ensure the best education for their children, knowing that knowledge was power. Hebrew teachers ensured that Israel's traditions were maintained, while foreign masters brought wisdom from other cultures. Rehoboam, son of Naaman the Ammonite, grew up in an environment of extremes. On the one hand, he received traditional Israelite education on the law of Moses. On the other, he was immersed in the exotic cultures of his harem aunts. This duality would eventually shape his future reign in a tragic way. The royal children rarely saw their father. Solomon, busy with state affairs and dividing his time among hundreds of women, delegated the upbringing of the children to the mothers and their tutors. Each mother tried to mold her child in her own image, creating factions within the palace. Gradually, Solomon's palace transformed into a melting pot of religions. Each foreign wife brought not only her beauty, but also her gods. The pharaoh's daughter worshipped Isis and Osiris in chambers decorated with hieroglyphs. The Sidonians burned incense to Astarte at secret altars. The Moabites celebrated rituals to Chemosh under the moonlight. Initially, Solomon allowed these cults as a diplomatic concession, but gradually, seduced by the love of his wives and intellectual curiosity, he began to participate in these rituals. He built altars for foreign gods on the hills around Jerusalem, each more elaborate than the last. The impact was devastating. The people, seeing their king worship other gods, began to question their own faith. Priests and prophets warned of divine wrath, but their voices were drowned out by the sound of pagan drums and harem laughter. In the heart of the kingdom, a spiritual battle unfolded. While the temple of Yahweh remained majestic in the center of Jerusalem, small shrines to foreign gods sprouted like weeds in the palace gardens. The scent of sacred incense now mingled with the exotic fragrances of pagan rituals. Maintaining 1,000 women was not just a matter of the heart. It was an immense financial burden. Each royal wife demanded a lifestyle befitting her position: servants' jewelry, fine clothes, exotic foods. The royal treasury, once overflowing with riches, began to show signs of depletion. The tax system had to be increased to support the court's lifestyle. The people, once proud of their wise king, began to murmur about the rising taxes. Forced labor was implemented to keep the palaces and temples running, generating resentment among the tribes. In the harem, intrigues intensified with the king's aging. Younger wives competed for attention, while older ones fought to maintain their influence. Rumors of conspiracies circulated through the gilded corridors. If you trust that God can restore any situation, comment, "Restore, Lord." Ancient texts speak of Solomon's ring, a magical artifact engraved with the sacred name of God. With this ring, it was said he could command spirits and demons, using them to build a temple in his palace. Each giant stone, each massive cedar beam, was supposedly moved by supernatural forces under his command. According to these legends, the demons themselves were forced to serve in Solomon's court. Some acted as messengers, crossing vast distances in seconds. Others revealed nature's secrets, teaching about the healing properties of plants and minerals. The Testament of Solomon, an ancient text, describes how he interrogated demons, learning their names, powers, and weaknesses. This knowledge was supposedly recorded in mystical books sought by magicians and sages through the centuries. But even with all this supernatural power, Solomon remained humble before God. He understood that his dominion over spiritual forces came only from the Most High and used this knowledge to glorify the Creator. If you believe in the supernatural power of God, comment, "God's power is greater." Leave your like now and declare, "My faith is firm in God." Let this action be a symbol of your trust in Him. Click now on the video appear on the screen to discover the mysteries behind the walls of ancient Jericho.